Namaskara. Today let's learn about fuel level sensor. The purpose of this sensor is to measure the amount of fuel that is present in the fuel tank. Give me a few seconds, I'll bring my whiteboard for detailed explanation.
12 seconds later.
We all know the importance of fuel, right? That is, in any IC engine, for combustion purpose, we need three fundamental ingredients, that is air, fuel and spark. In the vehicle, we have fuel tanks to store the fuel. Basically, we can classify these fuel tanks into two types. First one, uniform type, and second one is non-uniform type. In the uniform type, we can see these in the form of cube, cuboid or cylindrical shape. That is, if we divide this tank into equal parts, we will have equal amount of fuel in them. That is, at this middle point, it will be half filled. You would have observed this uniform type in the vehicles such as bus or trucks. It will usually have a cylindrical shaped fuel tank. And in non-uniform type, if we divide this tank into equal segments, we will have a different amount of fuel that is filled in each segment. That is, imagine if we take this part of tank, that is lower part of fuel tank, the amount of fuel that is filled in this part will be more than the amount of fuel that is filled in this part, top part. That is because there is more amount of volume in the lower part of the tank, and you can observe this non-uniform type in motorcycle or moped or in passenger cars. Now let's understand this graph. If you observe this diagram, this part is fuel level sensor and it is connected to a dial, and in non-uniform also it is connected to a one more type of dial. Basically, there are two broad ways to display the fuel level. One is analog type and the other one is digital type. In the analog type, we will have a dial, it will have a magnetic needle which moves like this from empty to full, and in between we will have markings for different amount of fuel, that is either it can be 25%, 50%, 75%, and this is digital type. In the digital type, we can classify this into two more types, that is it can be either numerical type or graphical type. In the numerical type, we are directly getting the percentage of fuel, either it can be 32%, 50% or 72%. It is relatively more accurate. When we come to graphical type, it can have a bar graph, that is between empty and full we can have a different segments. Each segment will have an LED which illuminate depending upon the fuel level. Now let's understand this graph. Here on the x-axis I have taken fuel level in percentage, and on the y-axis I have taken voltage output from the fuel level sensor. Basically, fuel level sensor will give an output in the range of 0 to 5 volts. Usually it will be supplied with the 12 volts power and 0 volts reference. The first curve is linear in nature and it belongs to uniform type. That is, if we can observe here, 50% of fuel means 2.5 volts and 100% of fuel means 5 volts. That is, both fuel level and the voltage output are increasing in a linear fashion. When it comes to non-uniform type, either we can observe this kind of slope or this kind of slope depending on the construction of this tank. Because motorcycles will have different kind of tank, mopeds will have different kind, and the car will have a different kind depending on the design. Now let's understand types of fuel level sensor. We have four types. First one is resistive or float type. This resistive type is widely used. If you observe this diagram, we have a body, a thin metal wire which is connecting to float, and this float level changes according to the fuel level. As the fuel level rises, this float also rises. A potentiometer will be placed on this pivot point. Potentiometer is an electronic component with the variable resistance nature. That is, depending upon the fuel level, the angle of the potentiometer changes, thus leading to a change in resistance, and the potentiometer will be connected to a voltage divider circuit. Output of this circuit will be in the form of voltage. This is a contact type sensor, and the remaining three are non-contact type sensor. Capacitive type will be in the form of cylinder with the hollow tube type which can fill with the fuel. That is, here the fuel is acting as a dielectric for the capacitor, thus the variation in the fuel level will lead to variation in dielectric and will have a different voltage output according to the fuel level. Third one is Hall effect type or magnetic type. The construction of this sensor will be similar to the resistive type. That is, instead of having a contact type potentiometer, we will have a non-contact type sensor which is Hall effect type, and depending on the float angle level, voltage output of the Hall changes. I will be explaining this Hall effect type in the future videos. And the last one is ultrasonic type. Basically, this sensor will have a TX and RX integrated in it. That is, it will have both ultrasonic transmitter and receiver in it. And it will be located on the top part. Transmitter keeps sending ultrasound waves at the fuel, and the receiver receives this reflected signal from the fuel. The working principle behind is it calculates the amount of time taken by the sound wave from the TX to the fuel and back to RX. We will divide this time by 2 because we need only one side travelling time, and we all know speed is equal to distance by time, and we know the speed of sound. Thus, we can calculate the distance between the top part and the fuel part. Among these, ultrasonic is the most accurate type of fuel level sensor, and it is most expensive. Now, just a tip, if you are having a fuel injected vehicle at your home, please always maintain minimum amount of fuel recommended by the manufacturer. This will help in maintaining long lifespan of fuel pumps. Now let's come to advantages and disadvantages of fuel level sensor. As I mentioned earlier, the resistive type is a contact type sensor. All contact type sensor will undergo wear and tear, and also it might build corrosion over the period of time. Thus, it reduces the efficiency of the sensor. Also, the lifespan of contact type sensor will be less when it is compared with the non-contact type sensor. The second one is fuel economy estimation. That is, it helps in getting the kilometers per liter or miles per gallon. And by using this fuel economy, the vehicle will also calculate the total range or the distance you can travel in the remaining amount of fuel. And one more thing about fuel level sensor you might have observed, sometimes the fuel levels in the dashboard will be inconsistent or incorrect. That is, by intuition you might have filled a certain amount of fuel and you will be expecting certain fuel level to be displayed in your dashboard, but your expectation and the fuel level might be different. That is because fuel, when it is stored in a container, cannot stay in an exact level while the vehicle is moving. That is, fuel keeps sloshing inside the chamber. That's why usually the fuel level readings are taken at a frequency of 10 seconds or 15 seconds, and by using these readings, an approximate fuel level will be displayed to you. One more additional application of this sensor will be in the connected fleets. When a transporter company or a fleet company has hundreds of buses or cabs or trucks, they can monitor the fuel level of their vehicles remotely in a dashboard. I hope you understood my explanation on this sensor, and if you found this video to be informative or you learned something, please do like, subscribe for future videos. I'll meet you in the next video. Bye bye.